good morning everybody. Welcome back to Tony's Top Tips Workshop. What I've got now is a video. I'm going to go down to the shop, and the video I'm doing now is to I mentioned it in the previous video on how to keep and maintain the centre of your axis, which is when you're on the rotary, which is very important. If that is not set up correctly every time, it doesn't matter so much on a if you're doing just a rounding toolpath or profile, that doesn't matter, but on 3D models it does. You have to be bang on the centre line of the A-axis, and this is my view, this is my way of doing it, and I hope it helps somebody. And if anybody out there, when they've watched this video, does it a different way, please let me know. I love to try it, and then I can obviously mention that you've put that forward. So let's get down into the shop and I'll show you what I mean. Right, here we are. This is another little tip I'll show you that I do. You see that cutter there? That is the finest I have, which is about 0.5 ball nose, tapered ball nose. You can just see it there. I've put that in. I'm not going to cut with it, and what I've done is I've actually sent the machine to home. Now if you remember in the other parts of the video, I told you about some figures when you return it to the position of the start of the project on the rotary axis, which was, the figures were 231.00 on the X, and Y was 121.749. Right, now when you go onto your I'll show you what I did. Back on that page, all I did was go on to the home, press that. Now you would think that when that goes home it would zero those figures off. It didn't. It went to home in the position it's in now, foremost left. Now if you click on that one again there, I would have thought those figures would have gone to zero, but it hasn't, so I've zeroed them. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the previous page, and then I'm going to move the x-axis to the right. Okay, and I'll move it over near roughly where the point of the tailstock is. Okay, so moving that over, roughly line it up by eye. There we go. Now just let's see what's happened with the, say, 113.099. okay, now what we're going to do now is we're going to move the y-axis. So we'll go back onto there, move the y-axis to the plus. Right, move that. So move that. Let's see what those figures are showing. These are only roughly 107.499. okay, right, so we're going to go back onto the page, and we're going to move the Z probe Z-axis down. Now be careful when you're doing this, because you don't want to hit that. You can see it. Ooh, right, now we're going to go up, because it's a little bit off, so what we're going to do is move that. I hope people are understanding what I'm trying to do. Is the most critical part, and I'll tell you the reason why. You must get it exactly in the centre. It'll appear to be cutting alright, but trust me, it won't be. It'll leave something out of a 3D model. I'll show you in a moment results. Okay, so that now I'm going to move the x-axis over a bit more. There. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jog this down. So we're on this one, we're going to actually now alter the to 1mm. Okay, and then what I want to do now is just jog the z-axis down a mil. Okay, now if you can see that we're near enough in line. Probably we'll move the x-axis a little bit on the plus side. There we go. Okay, now we're a little bit out on us. If you can see that, we're a little bit out on us Y. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to the y-axis, and that needs to be moved towards me, towards the back, so that's a plus. So we'll just move that. You see that? Now what we're going to do is we're going to alter the feed distance down to 0.1, because we've got to go down in very fine increments. Okay, so next thing we want to do is go down to the z-axis again, minus, and if you see that, you're always checking. Now, as you can see, I'm just going to go down a bit more with that. And you can see there now, see if I can get it to focus. You can see we are absolutely pinpoint on that centre. Okay, now the reason why you have to do this is, I'll just put the hand controller down a moment, is, let me get you this. Right, this is the item that we finished yesterday on with a 2mm ball nose. It should have really had maybe a 1mm diameter ball nose, give it a lot of fine detail. Right, so if you remember, that came out of the rotary axis like that. Now I'm going to put you this on the side. This is why it's critical to get that in. Now I've done this, I knew this, but I've done this. If you look from the top, you can see that they're like slightly angled, and they should be even, those, right? So when you look at the face of that part there, that's got the detail. That has been taken away. That has got the detail. That has been undercut. And that's simply because when you set it up by eye, if that centre of the spindle does not match the centre of the A-axis exactly, you will get that, and that's what causes that. It's nothing to do with the 3D model. It's because as it's rotating, right, if it's too far over to the left, well, as it's rotating unevenly, not exactly from the centre point, if you get what I mean, and that's what causes that. Okay, so I do this, and then once I've got that lined up, I know where it is, then I go back to the start. Look at those figures there, X and Y. It's not necessarily the X, because that's the one that's moving continuously. The Y axis on this never moves. It only ever moves when you want to change the cutter and zero off. That's the only time that this Y axis should ever move. So I know that if I jot those figures down, 108.499, when it comes to zero over this side, if I now, best thing to do is I'll write those down. Right, we're sending this to home now. Show you what I mean by, you've got to work with the how it is with the coordinates, and to be fair, if you'd have had a button at the side of there saying job 0, there wouldn't have been a problem. Right, that's at home now. Let's see what the coordinates are. All zeros. Okay, so now I want to find the center of the A-axis again. I've set my A-axis up, and I want it's bolt down by threaded nuts into the T-slot table, so at the end of the day that's exactly where it's going. Once you take it off, you can put it back in exactly the same spot to the 0.1 millimeter. Okay, so notice they're all zeros, so we want to move the y-axis to the center of the, so we'll go on there, and if you look 0, 0, 0, we'll go back to the previous page. I'm going to the y-axis now, and we're going to plus it. So, and all I suggest for this is, because you can't actually put a figure in as such, is just to roughly do it by eye. And what I do is, if you can see the, I'll just stop it there, you can see the top of the tailstock there, that's marked exactly with a scratch line and a V at the end in black. That's exactly the centre of that. And I've got on top of the A-axis there is the 108.499. so just do it by thigh, bracket thigh, a bit more, there we go. So then go down that page and see what that is. Next one, and we see we're 104.599, so 104, and we need to be 108.499. so what I would do is go back to the previous page, okay, and I know we're 4 off in the plus direction, so I'll go up to the top of feed rate to 1 mil, and I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, go back and have a look at this page, 108.599, so we're 0.1 out. So go back to the previous page, change that to 0.1, the y-axis, and we've gone over this time, so we want to come back to get it exactly. So we go 1. So that should, all being things being equal, 108.499. Right, so if we go back to the previous page again and go up to the feed rate, knock it back to centimeters, because that's what we want. Okay, and then, or times continuous as it's say, but I found out it moves it about 3 point some mil every button press, but if it's x times means continuous millimeters. Okay, so we want to go in the plus direction. I'll show you where we are. I'm just going to go over there to where it's marked on my A-axis tailstock. Go down into the Z minus, go back up to the feed rate because it's too much, is that? Go down to millimeters, back down to the Z minus, and you can see that that is slap bang in the center of that, and it'll do it every time. So it's a question of just a little bit more than pressing a button saying, you know, presetting it and saying that job 0. But that's what you need to know. You need to know with the handheld controller, offline controller, you need to know the center of the A-axis, and that's how you do it. On mine it might be slightly different on somebody else's. I'll send it to home now. That's moving to home. Okay, so back to home. If I look down at the job center, 0 0, all zeros, that's home. Okay, if I switch the machine off and put it back on, first thing it would have to 0 it where it is, and then you know you can put it, send it to home. Obviously if it's not in home, if you left it in another position, but send it to home and then 0 them all, and then put in your coordinates for your, I'm using A-axis today, 108.499 or whatever it is on yours. It might be slightly different. Punch it in, you know you're on the center of that. All you have to do then is line your X-axis up for your, and your Z probe, touch off your Z probe, and then once you get that set up, once you've moved your X-axis into position where you want for your job, then all you would do is 0 them all, and then that's your job 0. Remember, that 108.499 is just to get me to my center every time. So you know where it is, and then if, for instance, I go across wherever I am and then 0, then I know job position. I want to put a new job in, send it back to home, send it back to the coordinates, center of the A-axis, and then do your X and Z. Job sorted. This is how I do it. I don't know how anybody else will do it, or whether they're all theirs will work the same. But I do know that you have to work backwards and forwards from one page to another in order to get those coordinates right. I know every time if I come from home and it's zeroed, remember you must zero it once it's at home, because the figures there might be something on figures on there, need zeroing once you've homed it. Send it to those 108.499 or whatever it is on your machine, and it should go back to the center of the A-axis every time. It does on mine, and I've showed you what I did to show you. Believe it or not, that fault that I showed you with the undercutting one side, that was 1 mil off center. So you can imagine what the repercussions are if you're 2 mil off center, even worse. So you must have it on center. If you're doing a rounding job, doesn't matter that whatsoever. Not for what we're using it for. It'll still round off, but it's when you come to do a 3D model. Okay. I mean, it's worth knowing with the coordinates. I've found this out by time and time again, working the best way out to get your job 0 and what have you. Well, you know, I use the handheld controller for 3 axis, so it doesn't have to be on the 4th axis. I'll always maintain that. But this is what I'm telling you. If I turn the machine off, remember those figures I told you, 121, switch the machine back on, initialize, settings, 4th axis, return, prepare. Right, go down here, and 21.749.231.000. So don't know what it shows that, but first thing I do when is do that. My coordinates are right. If I then put 108.499 in, it'll go straight to the centre of the A-axis. Hope you can all understand that. Good. At least we've made a little bit of progress. Anyway, not blabbing on anymore. So, as I say, like, subscribe, and remember, till next time, be safe and be careful out there. Bye for now.